Hey, it's Steve Riley. Welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. And today we brought back our friend Doug Burnetti, the founding attorney at Burnetti P.A. And Doug and I, the last time he was on our show, got into a in-depth discussion. We both discovered we tripped over and fell in love with a book a long, long time ago called Win Friends and Influence People. And so Doug's back today to share his insights about this particular book. So Doug, welcome back to the show.
Steve, thanks for having me back. It's my pleasure.
Uh, but I'm so happy that you're here because this was a book that I think it's an old one, and I'll talk about it a couple of times today. It's an old book, but both of us really have referenced this book in our careers. And what I want you to do today, if you could, as you're let me say that again, 3, 2, 1. You're very successful. You build a heck of a practice. You're a board certified trial lawyer. Your reputation is terrific, but you've gotten a great life balance. And one of the things we talked about in our prior episodes was sometimes you share shortcuts, strategies, ways of building a great practice to other lawyers, and they kind of either don't hear it or they kind of ignore it. And what I want to do today was focus on one book that you found incredibly influential and have you share with our audience who are lawyers who are trying to build a great practice, make more money, find life balance. And I'd like you to tell them from your perspective some of the leadership lessons, some of the practice building lessons from this timeless book. Does that work for you?
Yes. Yeah, I'd be glad to share. Because
Good.
like you, this book has been a big life influencer for me.
When did you first read? So first off, when did you read the book and what impact did it have?
I read the book. The first time I read it, I believe I was in law school. Pretty sure I was in law school when I read it. It was before I had my own practice. I know that. You can take out a lot of the individual principles, and I'll do that in a minute. But when you take the overarching view of the book, and I think what he ultimately is leading to in conclusion is what I call servant leadership, which is kind of golden rule, meaning treat others as you would want them, to treat you. And man, if people could just get that right, it would just make things so much better. But the nice thing about the book is that's probably the overarching theme, but then he breaks it down obviously into principles. I actually keep, as I was telling you at the beginning, I keep the outline of those principles at my desk all the time, just so I can grab it once in a while and just look at it as a reminder. And that's, 34 years later, I'm practicing law 34 years. But I'd say a huge one is giving honest and sincere appreciation. Um, as we're building our businesses, in order to have a good work-life balance, you've got to be able to delegate and have people want to work with you, enjoy working with you. If they don't, I'm sure we've all been around those people. We've had those types of bosses work with, you know, they either your team falls apart or there's some poison in your team or there's some problem that crops up. Giving this honest and sincere being the key, appreciation. And I don't mean Pollyanny stuff. I'm talking, real appreciation. Um, it makes a difference, creates that relationship. It makes people want to work with you. It makes people want to be a servant leader or to be, not just a servant leader to you, but to the clients, to each other. It just creates a better environment. So to me, that's really in part one of the book, is to, give that honest and sincere appreciation.
What else would you recommend to lawyers out of this book?
Yeah. And this, it flows from that. This is a topic that we discuss a lot in our meetings, and it's really flows from that. It's empathy, which is that genuine listening that you just mentioned. I always call it empathy. It's feeling their pain. I mean, really feeling. Once again, it's a hard one to do because if you've not been in their shoes, it's just really hard for some people to put themselves there. In my life, I've been in their shoes, so I mean, I've been through a lot. My dad was killed in an auto accident. I was, you know, that family member was injured. I've been through litigation, so I've been through those things that they're going through. So it's a lot easier for me to empathize. Whereas, I've had lawyers that, man, they just can't seem to, especially I had an insurance defense lawyer that I hired, and he just could not make that shift, of thinking about the injured person. I think he was still, representing the insurance company. So he didn't last too long, but
There's a lot of plaintiffs' attorneys that I've worked with over the years. They've never been successful. I say that maybe I shouldn't say it so absolute, but I haven't heard many plaintiffs' lawyers say, "Yeah, I've hired a defense lawyer and he's been terrific." Most of the time, they're like, "I hired a defense lawyer. He did insurance defense lawyer and he just can't make the shift." Most of them, I guess,
you
when they get out of law school and they start training them, they just can't make the shift. I don't know what it is, but
look, and that goes back to the empathy thing, I mean, listen, if you can really feel it, what they're going through and show them you feel, man, you can represent them so well, really provides great customer service. So that's a big one. If I'm talking to a young lawyer right now saying, man, get that empathy thing down, if you're going to be a plaintiff's lawyer, make sure you're empathetic, get yourself off yourself and on them.
what else would you tell lawyers they need to consider in growing their practice that would be from the book, from Dale Carnegie's book?
Yeah, this is kind of the opposite of what of some of the things we talked about, but it's at the end. It's the very end. This is where he's talking about how to make your family happier. But I think it just applies to life. It's pay little attention, and what he's saying is don't make a big deal about things that don't need to be made a big deal. If that makes any sense. Uh, and that's hard to do. There's another a friend of mine. He used to say, uh, don't stumble over the dollar to make a nickel." In other words, do what do what's important and don't get hung up on what's not. And he, as part of that in his book, I keep this little poem or saying on my desk also, and I'll read it for you. It says, "I shall pass this way but once. Any good, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again." And he's saying that in the context of, you know, time's fleeting, right? I mean, you need to try to do good, and if there's somebody makes a mistake or does something that's not, you know, causing strife or the end of the world, or they made a mistake, don't obsess over it. Don't cause yourself a lot of uh, heartache over it. Of course, you have to deal with some of those issues, but deal with what's important, not the little thing. Uh, and sometimes you don't know exactly what that is, and you don't always get it right. I try to do that, and it's creative. It's another way of trying to create some peace in your life, right? And not too hung up over small things. So that's another one that's kind of that. Okay, good example. When I first opened, and I'm sure a lot of lawyers are like it. I mean, I was a control freak, man. I had such a hard time delegating, beginning. That took some time. And It's kind of that idea of letting go, right? You will have to let go, trust, understand that things are not going to be perfectly your way, and pay little attention to those things. Don't matter. And that's kind of what he's saying. I think that's a big, because, as young lawyers, man, I've seen it. They go to drinking, they go to partying, they go to whatever, because life as a lawyer is, or as any profession, can become very stressful, especially if you're old. Um, and so you gotta be able to let those things go. You have a happier practice, a happier life.